We all know it's out there. People talk about it constantly. Group chats, comment sections, TikTok think pieces, late night voice notes that start with, okay, tell me if you think I'm crazy. I'm talking about micro cheating, okay? Not full blown affairs, not dramatic scandals, but the subtle stuff that most of us overlook. The flirty DMs, the it's just a friend you conveniently leave details out about, the liking every single photo, the inside jokes that feel a little too intimate, the conversations you wouldn't have if your partner was sitting right next to you. It's nothing technically happened, but why does it feel so weird energy? The kind where trust doesn't explode, it just like quietly cracks away. And what's wild is how we all talk about micro cheating like it's always so intentional, like it's obvious. Like you wake up one day and consciously think to yourself, yes, today I'm going to blur a boundary. Who cares? But that's not how it actually happens, right? Most of the time, it's subtle, it's gradual, it's easy to fall into for sure, and even easier to explain away. A conversation that lingers a little too long, a joke that crosses a line you didn't mean to cross, a person who starts feeling like a safe place before you realize you've been emotionally checking in with them more than your actual partner. Sometimes people don't even realize they've entered into micro cheating, like until they're already standing knee deep in it. Not because they're malicious, but because it felt harmless at first. It was comforting or familiar or ego boosting or just easier than dealing with what was actually missing in your true relationship. So when I say we've all participated in it, that doesn't mean knowingly. It means being human. It means wanting connection. It means not realizing you've crossed an invisible line until you feel like shit about it. So, welcome back to Chasing Stability, where today we're talking all about micro cheating. Not in like a dramatic, accusatory way, though, but in a way that actually reflects real life, the subtle stuff, the very confusing stuff, the things we don't always clock as a problem until they start to feel like a big one. This episode isn't really about calling people out or playing relationship police or pretending this is like a black and white situation. It's about naming the gray area, the one we as humans keep tripping over or defending, minimizing, or feeling ashamed, but still it continues to be a big issue. So, this is my attempt to give it a true space where we can finally talk about it honestly. And the truth is, this gray area exists because most of the time, nothing technically happened. No one cheated in like a traditional sense. There's no dramatic story, no blatant betrayal, but something still feels off. It's like that gut feeling in your gut or their gut, or maybe both of your guts, whichever it may be. And that feeling, that's what we're actually talking about today. Because micro cheating doesn't usually look like sneaking around or lying through your teeth just because you can. It almost always starts by looking harmless or friendly or like I didn't mean it like that. It's the coworker you vent to instead of your partner, your work wife or work husband, the person you text when you're feeling unseen. Not because you're trying to truly cross that line of cheating, but because they quote unquote get it. It's the inside joke that feels innocent until you realize you'd feel extremely weird explaining it to your partner or a friend. The DM you didn't delete, but also conveniently didn't mention. The conversation that somehow stays just safe enough to justify, but just close enough to feel wrong. Most people don't walk into this intentionally. They don't think, I'm about to disrespect my relationship. They think, this isn't that big of a deal. or I can have a connection with someone other than my significantly other. And nothing physical has happened. So it really doesn't matter. Or they have a partner too. So we just get each other and we can complain to each other about it. But micro cheating isn't about what you're doing, it's about where your energy is going. And a lot of the time, you don't even notice that shift until something in you like tightens when it happens, or until you start minimizing, until you feel defensive instead of open, until transparency suddenly feels inconvenient. That's when you realize this didn't start as a betrayal, it started as a boundary slowly dissolving. And that's what makes micro cheating so easy to like fall into. So, before we get into how this shows up without intention and why so many people participate in it without even realizing, we need to get honest about one thing. The gray area is where most relationships either deepen or quietly start to fracture. And pretending it doesn't matter is usually what makes it matter the most. So, micro cheating usually doesn't start with attraction, it actually starts with permission. Permission to vent instead of communicate, permission to seek validation instead of repair, permission to keep something just for yourself because it feels good to be seen again. Hmm. It replies a little faster to that person than your partner. It's telling someone else the story you haven't shared at home yet. It's thinking, I wish they knew me the way this person does. Not because your partner is bad, but because something feels like it's missing. And this feels easier than naming it or addressing it or bracing for the fight that's going to happen if I bring it up, kind of thing. A lot of people fall into micro cheating while still believing they're loyal because there's no physical line crossed, no secret meetups, no obvious betrayals. So you tell yourself, it's just talking. We're just friends. I'd never actually like go that far with this person, or I never cheat. I'm allowed to have connections. And you are allowed to have connections, of course. But the question isn't can you? It's what role is this person filling that your relationship should be holding? Because the moment you start hiding conversations, minimizing interactions, deleting context, or feeling extremely defensive when asked about whoever it may be, that's usually your gut telling you something has shifted into dangerous territory. Micro cheating lives in that gap between what you'd feel comfortable explaining and what you hope never comes up. And sometimes it's not even emotional intimacy. Sometimes it's fantasy. The what if, you know, the ego boost, the version of yourself you feel when someone new laughs at your jokes or notices you in a way that feels effortless. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It usually means you're disconnected or tired or avoiding a hard conversation with the person that you actually love. And here's the uncomfortable truth: micro cheating isn't about wanting someone else, it's about not knowing how to address what's missing where you are. And once you see it like that, you can stop moralizing all of this situation and start being honest about it. So let me start the honesty right here. I've been on both sides of this. I've been the person who has 100% crossed a line I didn't even mean to cross. And I've also been the person sitting there thinking, I feel like something is being left out and the topic feels extremely fragile. And if I'm honest, owning your side is uncomfortable because it forces you to look at why you let the door crack open in the first place, right? For me, it wasn't about wanting someone else. It was about feeling unseen where I was. It was about wanting to feel interesting again. It was about choosing the easier moment of validation instead of the harder moment of vulnerability. And that's the thing. Micro cheating doesn't usually come from bad intentions. It comes from unmet needs that we didn't know how to name. Sometimes you don't even realize that you're drifting until you catch yourself thinking, I wouldn't want anyone reading this. That's usually the moment it hits, right? And instead of pausing and asking, why am I here? A lot of us double down on the denial. We say, I didn't mean it like that. It wasn't that serious. I'd stop if it became a problem. I've been there too. And the truth I had to learn the hard way was if you wouldn't do it openly, it already is a problem. Owning your side doesn't mean labeling yourself as unfaithful. Okay. It means recognizing that you're human and avoidance is extremely sneaky. And I get how easy it is to justify it when you're hurting, when your relationship feels extremely heavy, when communication feels exhausting, when you don't feel chosen lately. But growth looks like saying, this isn't who I want to be in a relationship, even if no one else ever finds out. Because integrity isn't proven when someone's watching, is it? It's proven in the moments where you could get away with it and you choose not to. And that doesn't mean shame, it means responsibility. Owning your side is less about guilt and more about asking yourself, what am I avoiding? What conversation am I afraid of having? What need am I outsourcing instead of addressing it and asking for it? And once you're honest with yourself about all of those things, you're no longer drifting blindly. You're choosing. And that's when you can learn to stop getting sucked in and where the repair can start. Then there's the other side of the micro cheating, where you're the one blindsided by something you didn't see coming. Or worse, maybe you did see it coming. It's the side no one can prepare you for, right? Because when micro cheating happens to you, it messes with your head in a very specific way. There's no clean moment to point to. There's no obvious betrayal to like explain away your pain. There's just this quiet, lingering ache that keeps you asking, why do I feel this hurt if nothing technically is going on or happened? And that's the worst part. You feel like you don't even have the right to be upset. I've been there, sitting with that knot in your chest, replaying conversations, noticing the shifts in the energy, wondering why I suddenly feel like I'm competing with someone who doesn't matter. And when you try to name it, you're met with things like this: you're being crazy. We're just friends. Nothing's going on. So now not only are you hurt, you're questioning your own intuition. Micro cheating hurts because it doesn't just threaten the relationship, it threatens your sense of reality. You start wondering, am I insecure? Am I being dramatic? Am I actually imagining this? And in reality, your body usually knows before your brain catches up. You feel the distance. You feel like the distraction. You feel the emotional shift long before you ever have the actual proof. What hurts isn't just the person, it's the feeling of being slowly displaced and watching intimacy get shared somewhere else where you're still technically together. And what makes it even harder is that micro cheating often comes with these plausible deniabilities. So instead of accountability, you get confusion. Instead of repair, you get reassurance without change. I know how easy it is to downplay your pain because there wasn't a clear line crossed. But let me say this plainly: emotional safety matters just as much as physical fidelity. If someone makes you feel small and unsettled or unseen in your relationship, it deserves to be taken seriously, not minimized, not mocked, and definitely not brushed off. You're not crazy for feeling hurt by something subtle. You're not asking for too much by wanting clarity and respect. And you're not weak for noticing when your partner's attention starts landing somewhere else. That's intuition. Being hurt by micro cheating doesn't mean you're insecure. It usually means that you desperately care and something important to you feels threatened. And that pain, it's not something you should have to carry alone or explain away. Micro cheating doesn't exist because people are evil, bored monsters who can't control themselves. It exists because modern relationships ask us to meet needs we were never taught how to talk about. Most people were never taught how to say, "Hey, I feel disconnected lately. I miss being desired. I don't feel chosen by you right now. Something's missing and I don't know how to fix it." So instead of naming the gap, we step around it. Micro cheating is often what happens when communication feels risky, conflict feels exhausting, vulnerability feels unsafe, and validation feels easier somewhere else. It's a coping mechanism, not a healthy one, obviously, but a very human one. We also live in a world where access is literally constant and at our fingertips at all times. Old versions of people, new attention, low effort validation, endless opportunities to feel seen without being known. You don't have to go looking for temptation anymore. It will literally find you on some random Tuesday in your DMs. And I get how easy it is to fall into without realizing, especially when life that you are in feels extremely heavy around you, when relationships are in a very bad way, when you're tired of being the responsible one. I've been there, choosing the version of connection that didn't require me to say the hard things out loud, the version that didn't ask me to risk rejection or start a difficult conversation. Micro cheating is often less about attraction and more about straight up avoidance, avoidance of conflict, avoidance of accountability, avoidance of emotional exposure, avoidance of facing the fact that something needs attention. Sometimes it's about loneliness inside a relationship. Sometimes it's about someone's ego. Sometimes it's about wanting to feel like your old self again. And sometimes it's simply about not knowing how to ask for what you need without feeling needy. None of that excuses the behavior, obviously, but it explains why it's so common. And the uncomfortable truth is, micro cheating thrives in silence. It grows when needs go unnamed and boundaries go unspoken, which is why the solution isn't tighter control or constant suspicion. It's clearer expectations, emotional honesty, and mutual responsibility. Because when both people feel safe to say, "Hey, I'm struggling," or "I need more from you," or "I don't want to lose us, so like let's talk about this," there's far less room for something else to sneak in. One of the reasons micro cheating survives so easily is because it hides behind really convincing language. We don't call it what it is. We soften it. We like sanitize it. We dress it up so it sounds harmless. And if you've ever been a part of this situation on either side, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You hear things like, "We're just friends. It didn't mean anything. I didn't think you'd care. You're reading way too much into this. I'd never cheat on you, like ever." And I get it. I literally used some of those lines myself, not because I wanted to hurt someone, because I didn't want to face what the behavior implied. Because once you name it honestly, you have to deal with it. Intent doesn't cancel impact. You can mean not to cross a line and still cross it. You can plan not to hurt somebody and still definitely hurt somebody. A lot of the language around micro cheating is designed to avoid discomfort, to protect the self image of being a good person instead of actually protecting your relationship. And when someone explains it away long enough, it creates a second wound, the one where the hurt partner starts questioning whether their feelings are valid at all. That's when things get dangerous, not because of the behavior alone, but because honesty gets replaced with defensiveness. And that's usually the moment clarity becomes necessary, or the big blow up and the infamous fight that usually comes with micro cheating will occur. So let's clear this up right now. Boundaries are not about controlling someone's behavior, they're about defining what safety looks like for you inside a relationship. Healthy boundaries don't sound like you're not allowed to talk to someone anymore or you can't have that friend. They sound like, this is what makes me feel secure. This is what feels disrespectful to me. This is where I start to feel disconnected. Boundaries aren't punishments, they're information. And the people who benefit from blurred lines will always call boundaries controlling. But the truth is, clarity protects everyone. I've learned this the hard way, honestly, more times than I can count. When boundaries aren't spoken, assumptions take over, and assumptions leave way too much room for hurt, deceit, all the things. Clear boundaries don't limit love, they like focus in on it. They say, this is what we're building, this is what we're protecting, this is how we choose each other on purpose. And if someone hears your boundary and immediately feels threatened by it, that's not about control, that's about compatibility. So, unfortunately for us, we're the first generation really navigating this in relationships to this extent. There's no universal rule book for micro cheating. What feels harmless to one couple might feel deeply violating to another. Some people are fine with close friendships, some aren't. Some people don't care about texting, others feel shaken by it. And neither is wrong as long as it's discussed openly. Problems don't come from different boundaries within each other, right? They come from the unspoken ones. Most couples never actually define where their line is. They just assume the other person should know. And that's how resentment quietly builds. I've learned that love doesn't fail because boundaries exist. It fails because people expect mind reading instead of communication. And I'm guilty of it. If you don't talk about what feels intimate, what feels inappropriate, what feels off limits, what feels disrespectful, then someone will eventually cross a line that they didn't even realize was there. Having the conversation isn't awkward. Avoiding it is what creates the mess. Because when the line is clear, people either respect it or reveal they won't. And that information matters. One of the biggest myths around relationships is that loyalty is something you prove after a line is crossed. Like the goal is just to avoid doing something bad enough to count. But real loyalty doesn't live at the edge of betrayal. It lives in the everyday choices that protect connection before it's ever threatened. And that responsibility belongs to both people. It's not your job to monitor your partner, it's not their job to read your mind. It's not healthy for one person to carry the weight of keeping the relationship intact. Protecting the relationship looks like choosing transparency over secrecy. Super simple. Choosing honesty over convenience. Choosing your partner even when no one would ever know if you didn't. And I say this knowing how easy it is to forget all of that when you're tired and you're disconnected and you're feeling unseen or hurt or neglected. I've been the person who assumed if it really mattered, they say something. And I've also been the person who thought, I don't need to bring this up. It's not that big of a deal. Both of those assumptions create the distance. Healthy relationships require two people who are actively guarding the same thing, not one person drawing a boundary while the other tests it. And this isn't about perfection and it's not about intentionality. You don't protect a relationship by avoiding people, you protect it by being clear about where your loyalty lives. By asking yourself, would I feel okay if my partner saw this? Would this hurt them if they knew? Am I choosing connection or escape right now? And on the other side, being willing to hear your partner when something feels off, not getting defensive, not minimizing their feelings, not flipping it back on them. Because when someone says this hurts, they're not attacking you, they're inviting you to protect what you have together. A relationship stays strong not because temptation disappears, but because both people agree to guard the same ground. And when that mutual responsibility is present, micro cheating loses the environment it needs to absolutely thrive or survive. So I think I want to leave you with this. Micro cheating isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest before things break. It's about paying attention to where your energy goes when no one's watching. It's about choosing transparency over comfort. And it's about remembering that intimacy doesn't disappear all at once. It fades in these small moments where we stop protecting it. If you've done it, that doesn't make you unlovable. If it's been done to you, that doesn't make you insecure to question it. It just means something needed care or clarity or courage, and it didn't get it in time. Healthy relationships aren't built on avoiding temptation. They're built on mutual respect and open conversation and shared responsibility of protecting that relationship. And the people who are willing to have those conversations, to listen instead of defend, to repair instead of justify, to choose integrity even when it's inconvenient, those are the people capable of real, lasting connection. So, if this episode stirred something up in you, don't rush to judge yourself or your partner, or maybe a friend who's going through it and talking to you about it, whatever. Get curious instead. Ask the harder questions, name the quiet discomforts, draw the boundaries that protect what you actually want. Because the goal isn't to avoid crossing the line. Like that should just be kind of like given that you just don't want to do that. It's to build a relationship where those lines don't feel tempted in the first place. So, and that's the end. And if this conversation resonated with you, share it with someone who's navigating a gray area they haven't really named yet, or send it to your partner as an invitation, not an accusation. And if you're finding yourself here week after week, please make sure you're following Chasing Stability wherever you are listening today. This community is for the people who want honesty and growth and relationships that feel safe, not confusing and judgy. So as you move through your week, please take this with you. Protect your connection, okay, in your relationship. Choose clarity over comfort and don't betray yourself to keep the peace. This is Chasing Stability, and I'll meet you in the in between next Tuesday.